Well, SAFTA General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi says Eskom workers should not be made to pay for the corruption made by Eskom executives. He joins us live in the studio to speak more on this. Mr. Vavi, it's a pleasure to have you. First and foremost, we're looking at some of the comments you made over the past week, and one of them is a declaration of war. Can you expatiate on that?
Well, absolutely. Firstly, but let me do this. Let's congratulate the workers of Eskom yesterday, organized by NUMSA NUM Solidarity, for the unity they displayed. I mean, South Africa's labor movement in the recent period have been known to be fragmenting, weakening, allowing spaces to the bosses to exploit those divisions amongst them. Yesterday, we turned the situation around. There is a working committee that unites all of those three unions. They've developed a program, they're working together. There are no issues whatsoever on the ground amongst themselves, and this we must salute. And in fact, we think that that display of unity they demonstrated yesterday is partially responsible for the victory that they have scored, in that the CEO of Eskom was forced to make a public declaration that negotiations will now be reopened, which means that Eskom will now have to bring an improved offer to the ridiculous 0% that they were trying to force down the throats of their workers. This is very important.
It's very important.
Absolutely important. Because it then means that we can now go back to a real collective bargaining process between the unions and management and Eskom. We said this was a declaration of war because we have a sense that not just in Eskom, but across the board, the government, having embraced neoliberalism and embarked on austerity program in response to the 2008 world economic crisis, but also in response to the crisis created by the government on its own, unprovoked, as it was pursuing the program of tenderization, corruption, is now turning around to want to make workers to pay for all of those mistakes. At Eskom, they're saying that workers must take a 0%. In the public service, they have given workers a single percent, 0.5% or no increase whatsoever, no real improvement in the living standards of workers in the next 3 years. And this is what we think is a pattern. In telecom, they are offering workers 3% improvement in their wages, way below the inflation. In addition to that, at telecom, they've cut 2/3 of those workers. At Eskom, we fear, and that's what we think is coming in the pipeline. They want to chop 10,000 jobs. And in addition to that, they want to close 5 power stations in Mpumalanga in order to open a way for the IPPs, something that is going to lead to a loss of 40,000 jobs in Mpumalanga. That we cannot afford. In the public service, the previous Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, announced in 2016 through his yet another belt-tightening speech that 25,000 jobs will have to go in the public service through natural attrition. And they're bringing that program to the fore now to implement it rigorously. At the time when the workers in Charlotte, Maxeke, in Northwest, and everywhere else are up in arms demanding that the government must fill the vacancies, must improve on the working conditions by ensuring that they have the necessary equipment to provide essential services that they provide to the public. And this is what we then call a declaration of war. We can't be made to pay for the mistakes that we didn't commit.
Let me come in here. And I think this is part of the issue. There's an issue of, whether you keep the jobs. So it's either as you say, jobs get chopped. So it's retrenchments versus the increases that the workers are currently asking for. How do you then strike that balance where Eskom is saying we simply actually don't have that money? So it's either we say to you, we can't give you more money, or we're going to have to do worse and, have people losing their jobs, those jobs being chopped, as you put it.
One of the demands that workers have made in the negotiations is that Eskom must bring its books, the audited statements over the past 10 years, so that we can all make sense as to how it happened that a company that was the world leader in terms of how well it was run, the company that provided the best and the cheapest electricity in the whole world, the company that was celebrated by all power producers across the globe, how it happened that today it says that it is under by a 350 billion rands. Surely fundamental mistakes have been committed, not by workers. And workers must not be made to pay for the fundamental mistake committed by others. And that's the point that we're making. The second point, and which is why workers feel so insulted. Workers have been reading about the high bonuses that the executives are earning over the past period. Workers know that the salary of the CEO is way above 5 million rands, and workers have seen all of this and read about this, and of course they have not benefited in the material way in terms of their own working conditions, and that's why they're now saying, don't tell us about your crisis of 350 billion. Tell us about why we should not get a reasonable increase, because we have, under the worst working conditions, kept the lights and kept this economy going. And why must they pay through their jobs and through 0% increases? Well, and that's why we're saying, no, don't come to our side. Go elsewhere. Maybe go to Dubai. Go to the union buildings. Go elsewhere and find out why the Eskom is finding itself in that situation and solve the problem. But don't make workers to solve the problem.
Well, Mr. Vavi, first of all, I would like to apologize. It's 2 against 1 here, so we're going to put you on the hot seat with a lot of difficult
he
questions.
Doesn't mind.
You don't mind that?
I don't mind.
Well, sir, you highlighted the problems of Eskom. It's public knowledge that they are in financial crisis. Should you sit in front of them, where do you expect them to get the money from? I mean, you can picket, you can down tools, you can stand on your head and sing the national anthem if you like, but if there's no money, there is no money. Where do you suggest this money for the pay increase should come from?
No. You're asking a very wrong person that question. You're asking the victims of mismanagement.
But the fact is the fact. The fact is the fact. If there's no money, there's no money.
Victims of mismanagement. You're asking the representative of the people who represent people, those who represent people who have worked very hard in each and every workplace to make sure that this country have power, have electricity, and have lights in the homes, and that it makes a contribution in the reduction of crime and all of that. We should not be asked that question. You should ask the CEO of South Africa, Inc., President Ramaphosa, and his cabinet. You should ask the ANC and National Executive Committee. You should ask all of those people who kept quiet for 9 years when the destruction of the state-owned enterprises was underway as to where money will come from and how workers will be paid. We refuse to engage with that question.
Sir, let me reverse the
question.
Let me
to
reverse
ask
the
it
question.
from workers.
Let me reverse that question. As a labor leader, are you prepared to perhaps name and shame certain individuals in order to hold them accountable for this?
Look, we
perhaps what will
do
you
you know
do?
that in September last year, we took an unprecedented step. We went to lay charges against Trillian and Mackenzie. We forced the hand of the asset forfeiture unit in the process to raid them, Mackenzie in particular, and Trillian to bring for a 1.6 billion rands that they have received from Eskom unfairly as part of this looting spree. Why unions have to do that? Where is the government? Where is the ruling party? why it takes ordinary people to find money elsewhere to do what the NPA should be doing every day in ensuring that it protects the assets of the country. Now, that was just 1.6 billion. We could only trace the money and go for them because they have gone to Parliament in Eskom to admit that 1.6 billion rands was milked by Trillion and Mackenzie. But where's the rest of the other billions?
Is the only way to drive the point home by making the South African public suffer the consequences? I mean, I keep hearing you say these are the people that keep the lights on. These are the people that keep the streets lit up and, making sure that there's no crime and so forth. It's almost like a threat to the South African general public. We have nothing to do with, what's happened at Eskom. Is there no alternative way for the workers' grievances to be addressed other than these kinds of, we keep your lights on?
No, we're not threatening anybody. We are stating the fact that under very trying circumstances, workers at Eskom have produced miracles in ensuring that the lights are kept on. That's just a fact. But through their actions yesterday, they forced the management to reopen the negotiations. That was very important because it comes in the background of the fact that only last week, the Eskom management was flatly refused to move from that 0%, had taken some very insulting, provocative steps, such as surrounding the whole negotiating venue with nyalas and deploying private security all over the show as a sign of an attempt to intimidate those workers into submission. They have stood steadfastly to say, no, we deserve a salary increase. You have to find ways to ensure that you fund that without cutting our jobs, and that's where we stand.
The production team is pushing us to wrap up, but I just have to challenge you on one more thing.
I've got one more question as well.
I just have to challenge you on one more thing. You said that the unions have displayed so much unity in their demonstrations. We've heard from Eskom that there's been a lot of worker intimidation. So we understand the unions can be peaceful together and work together and display unity together. But for those workers who are saying, actually, I'd like to continue working, why are those workers not being left alone to do as they would want to?
Intimidation, violence should have no place whatsoever in the demonstrations workers lead, because intimidation and violence can only achieve one thing: to divert attention away from the grievances, genuine grievances workers have, and into something else, can defocus us, and that's why at all times we unequivocally condemn it. So we condemn any kind of violence or any kind of intimidation that could have taken place.
To condemn is one thing, but to do something about it?
We, of course, that's why we always ensure that in all of our demonstrations we have marshals, we work with the police, we make sure that we limit any possibilities of any hothead from going out of what we say the demonstration should be, peaceful and orderly. Including yesterday, I think that, we didn't see this massive intimidation. Always be careful, though, of what management say, because every time they cannot defeat workers united, they play this card that many people were intimidated, and that's why the demonstrations are so successful.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi, SAFTU General Secretary, joining us here in the studio. We do appreciate your time, sir. Let's take a short break. Do stay with Afro Breakfast.